seconds to just ask
For you, when is the last time I said no?
You never have, and let's not start that now. If you could just a little bit
In a
closer.
decade.
So-
But I'm really going there, by the way.
I know, but that's why I won't keep you very long. So I just wanted to ask you, you've been asked, I'm sure, by some colleagues, François-Philippe, would you like to run for the leader? And what have you been saying to your colleagues about that?
Well, I've been consistent that I'm seriously considering a bid for the leadership, but we need to know the rules. So obviously, there'll be a time to reflect on that as the party is putting the rules together. But it's true that we need an ambitious Canada. We need a confident Canada. We need to present a vision of a country that can win in the 21st century, an economic vision, a vision of hope. And certainly that's something that I've been thinking for a long time. But, you know, we'll see what the rules are, and then we'll have more to say in the coming days.
This is a pool camera, so it's my friends from Radcan and TVA. En français, s'il vous plaît?
Ben, je disais, écoutez, je l'ai toujours dit, je considère sérieusement une candidature pour le leadership du Parti libéral du Canada. Mais évidemment, on va voir les règles. Mais c'est clair que moi, j'ai une vision ambitieuse du Canada, un Canada confiant, un Canada qui peut gagner au 21e siècle. Je pense qu'on a démontré notre capacité, justement, à bâtir une vision du futur. Et c'est exactement sur ce que je me penche depuis longtemps, cette vision-là ambitieuse d'un pays confiant, d'un pays qui peut gagner dans le 21e siècle. Mais évidemment, on aura plus à dire dans les prochains jours lorsqu'on connaîtra les règles.
How will the leadership bid impact your work in the US?
I'm going to the back.
Bon, allez voir mon Twitter.
C'est ça, je l'ai dit. Pensez-vous qu'il va changer d'idée? Avez-vous espoir?
Écoutez, je ne parlerai pas au nom de M. Leblanc, mais je pense que ce serait, comme je l'ai mentionné, un excellent candidat. C'est que je garde espoir.
OK. Merci.
Oui, pour l'instant, il faut attendre que tous les candidats soient en liste. Au moment où on se parle, il y a encore des candidats qui sont en décision. Oui, est-ce que j'ai reçu des appels? Oui, j'en ai reçu de quelques candidats ou candidates. Mais on va attendre que ça soit officiel, on va attendre que les gens soient en liste et on fera notre choix par la suite. Je ne sais pas à ce stade-ci si je vais appuyer quelqu'un publiquement, mais j'ai un rôle à jouer à titre de président du caucus du Québec, c'est de travailler à chaque semaine sur tout ce qui peut se passer pour les candidatures.
C'est à quel moment que ça va être décidé?
Bien, à partir d'aujourd'hui, à tous les jours, il peut y avoir un candidat qui dépose sa candidature. Le défi, c'est qu'on doit y avoir 300 signatures dans 3 provinces différentes dans les règlements de la Constitution. Donc, il faut que les candidats aient fait un peu de terrain d'ici à quelques jours. On s'attend qu'il y ait des dépositions officielles.
Mais le choix du chef, non. C'est à quel moment que ça va se faire?
Le choix du chef, on n'a pas de date.
Est-ce que, selon vous, ça devrait être un choix du caucus ou vraiment un choix de
non, c'est complètement dépendant. C'est complètement indépendant du caucus. Nous, les caucus, on se rassemble, on donne des recommandations, mais il y a un conseil d'administration.
Ouais. Mais vous, c'est quoi que vous suggérez? C'est une course déterminée par le caucus ou déterminée par l'ensemble des...
Non, la convention est là, elle est claire, elle est très, très bien définie. C'est une course à 91 jours. Les règlements doivent être modifiés pour que la course soit raccourcie pour arriver à la fin, qu'on puisse avoir un retour le 24 mars. Et toutes les règles sont là en place pour être modifiées aussi. C'est que ça prend le 3/4 du conseil d'administration, 75 qui vont voter pour une
il n'y a pas question que ce soit le
changement de
caucus qui décide.
Non, pas du tout.
On s'attendait à une vague de protestation. Aujourd'hui, pendant le caucus, Trudeau va démissionner. Quelles ont été les discussions?
Ce qui se passe dans les caucus, nécessairement, vous me connaissez déjà très bien, reste dans les caucus. Je ne parlerai pas du contenu qu'on a eu aujourd'hui, mais ce que je peux vous dire, c'est très constructif, très positif. Le message, surtout ce matin, comme président du caucus du Québec, ça a été une vague d'amour de voir comment est-ce qu'on peut travailler ensemble pour la suite. Et puis, c'est plaisant de travailler dans ces conditions-là.
Il y a Dominique Leblanc qui a dit qu'elle n'allait pas se présenter à la chefferie, mais
oui,
il y a certaines personnes qui sont un peu déçues.
Oui, j'ai entendu l'entrevue de mon collègue Joël Lightbound. Mon équipe m'a envoyé l'entrevue ce matin, ce que j'ai pu écouter. Bien, effectivement, c'est un choix de Dominique Leblanc. Dominique a décidé, à ce stade-ci, de ne pas se présenter, ou à la fois peut-être en réflexion, je ne le sais pas. Mais à ce stade-ci, c'est un candidat qui n'a pas donné sa candidature.
Mais est-ce que vous pensez qu'il est possible que certains arrivent à le pousser dans l'autre sens?
Peut-être. Dominique Leblanc, vous savez, c'est quelqu'un qui est parfaitement bilingue, qui travaille très bien avec le Québec. C'est un candidat aussi qui qui est très connaissant à l'international. Dans le contexte qu'il faut négocier avec Trump très rapidement, c'est aussi une bonne personne. Ils ont chacun et chacune des qualités. Je suis convaincu que ceux qui vont se présenter ont chacun des qualités ou chacune des qualités qui vont faire en sorte qu'ils vont bien nous représenter sur différentes facettes. Est-ce que Dominique Leblanc serait un bon candidat? Oui, effectivement.
There's 3 Quebec MPs considering leadership around Champagne, Joly, and MacKinnon. Do you have one that you prefer out of those 3, or?
No. At this point, I didn't prefer anybody. I just want to wait until we had the original list. All the people have to get a signature. They need 300 signatures. They have to go through 3 different provinces. And I just want to make sure that I will learn everything that they have to say before I make my choice.
Est-ce que le parti a catégoriquement rejeté l'idée d'avoir un chef par intérim là, et laissé tomber l'histoire de la course compétitive? Est-ce que le parti s'est rangé, autrement dit, dans la proposition du premier ministre?
Bien, il y avait plusieurs options, mais disons que le choix du premier ministre prime d'abord. C'est le premier ministre. Lui a décidé de rester. Est-ce que c'est une bonne nouvelle en soi? Je crois que oui, dans le contexte qu'on doit, en ce moment, gérer un pays.
Le caucus s'est pas opposé à ça, par exemple?
Pas du tout. Et puis, tu sais, c'est un accueil chaleureux du premier ministre. Il a fait ça comme un gentleman. Il s'est présenté droit devant le podium et il a resté, comme qu'il a toujours été, fier et un combattant. Puis il a annoncé qu'il va supporter le pays pendant la course à chefferie, puis il va même appuyer le processus pour qu'on ait un processus le plus démocratique possible selon les règles de l'art.
Mais on entendait des anciens libéraux dire « Ah, ben le caucus devrait choisir un chef
Ben
par
oui,
Vous avez entendu ça aussi?
J'ai entendu ça des commentateurs. Mais moi comme dans le gouvernement, je suis fier que le premier ministre ait pris cette position-là claire, qu'il va continuer à défendre notre pays. Puis d'autant plus, il ne faut pas négliger que le fait que le Trump va arriver en piste dans quelques jours. Puis qui de mieux qu'un premier ministre qui a déjà négocié 4 ans avec le gouvernement Trump, avec des ententes historiques qu'on a eues avec les États-Unis sur le libre-échange. Donc, déjà là, avec la menace de Trump qu'on entend sur les tarifs, sur la 51e État des États-Unis, qui de mieux que quelqu'un d'expérience pour contrer ça?
C'était comment avec M. Trudeau, en même temps?
Ça, je ne peux pas vous le dire. Ce qui se passe dans le caucus reste dans le caucus.
C'est un peu bizarre comme ambiance? Ou...
Non.
S'il y avait de l'émotion?
C'est évident que c'est émotif. C'est émotif. Depuis 2015, qui nous a traînés, en fait, il a fait d'un gouvernement de tellement de belles réalisations pour ma circonscription. Les programmes en aide pour les familles. On a sorti 500 000 enfants de la pauvreté. Comment ça ne peut pas venir me toucher? Tout ce qu'on a fait pour mon petit bébé, l'Internet rural. J'ai arrivé pour représenter la ruralité à un chef qui venait de Montréal, de grandes villes. Et puis, j'ai eu mon premier 150 millions. On a dépensé plus de 7 milliards dans la connectivité. Quand j'ai créé le premier caucus rural avec David Graham à l'époque dans les Laurentides, le premier ministre nous a écoutés. À toutes les semaines, il nous a écoutés, puis on a évolué dans le dossier. Je ne peux pas être contre, être reconnaissant de tout ce qu'on a fait.
Donc, c'est émouvant dedans pour bien des gens.
C'est toujours émouvant quand quelqu'un nous quitte, pour quelle que ce soit la raison. Et j'ai tellement de gratitude pour tout ce qui a été fait avec le premier ministre que, évidemment, moi, je veux parler pour moi. Oui, j'ai été émotionnel, mais je peux vous dire une chose. C'est que on est une famille, on est fort, on est unis. Ça a apparu aujourd'hui. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
What are you saying? Dominic LeBlanc, should he change his mind?
He absolutely should. He has what it takes to beat Pierre Poilievre, and I think he has broad support from caucus. So I really hope he does reconsider and put his name in the hat, in the ring.
What is it that he has that you think could beat Poilievre?
Well, I think Dominic has incredible political sense, but more than that, he understands this country. He understands what Canadians are facing, and he's real. He talks like a real person. He understands the real issues that people are facing, and he knows how to bring solutions. And so I think he has exactly what it takes, and I think he's going to stand up for Canada in dealing with the U.S. or anybody else. And that's why I think he's our best bet, but it's something he needs to decide.
Do you think that other people, other MPs, Liberal MPs in your caucus, think the same thing, also want him to reconsider?
I don't want to speak for others. It's not fair, but I think Dominic has shown for a number of years. I'm probably very biased because I've been his PS for a number of those years, but he has what it takes. He cares deeply about this country, and he will connect with people from coast to coast to coast.
Do you not think any of the other contenders
It's
shape
not
up?
for that. It's not about that. It's that I believe in.
Confidence in process I'll say what I said going into the meeting is that we have an opposition leader who won't take his briefing. And it's important for those inside the party to listen to those inside our caucus room who have taken their security briefings, and I think those concerns are being listened to. Thank you.
It was a good caucus, as always is. It was a good discussion.
Are you guys giving a recommendation to the party in terms of what you should want the leadership race to look like, and was there consensus on that?
Well, so party's going to decide. I don't discuss a caucus deliberation, but it was a very thoughtful conversation around the process we should be looking at. Of course, it's up to the party executive to make this determination based on the Constitution.
Was there representation from the party executive? I understand you don't want to talk about what was said, but we're just trying to understand, like, was there someone from the party in there who could actually hear your concerns?
Of course.
Was it the party president?
Of course.
And what do you favor? I know you don't want to talk about what's caucus, but what do you favor in a leadership race? What are you looking for?
Well, from a process perspective, we need to make sure that is a credible process, a process that is fair and transparent. We want Canadians to have full confidence in the process that we follow in electing the next leader and the Prime Minister of the country. So that's a very important element, which I have full confidence in the party and the board that the rules they will set up will allow for that level of credibility to the entire process.
What does a credible process mean, though? What does that look like to you specifically?
Well, I think transparency and fairness is important. Making sure the rules are in place that allows for people's participation, that there's no doubt around the vote and the mechanism that was used to elect the leader. These are some really important fundamental principles that we follow to elect anyone, including a city councillor or an MPP or an MP, but also making sure that it's being done in a way that there are no doubts as to that it favored one candidate over the other. So that element of fairness is always very important.
What's your position?
Can we expect changes?
Again, that's a party. You have to ask the party about those type of things.
Do you think, eligibility-wise, though, do you think it should be restricted to citizens and permanent residents?
Again, those are something that the party has to determine, and they have to make those determinations based on.
What's your position? What's your position?
I think we do have to be mindful about concerns around foreign interference, right? This is something we are far more aware of today than ever before. So I think we need to make sure that there are safeguards in place that will ensure that the veracity of the process and the people who engage in voting is not questionable.
What assurances, if any, did you receive that there will be safeguards in place?
We had a very thoughtful discussion. Of course, the party is looking at all their options, and they were really thoughtful in listening to what was presented to them.
When do you your colleagues just came out and said they want Dominic LeBlanc to change his mind? Do you think that there's enough of an effort to get him to reconsider running for leadership?
There's a lot of effort to do that. I've been saying now for the last 2 days that we need to make sure that we have a leader who's experienced, who's fluently bilingual, who is able to communicate with Canadians and present a positive vision forward. I think Dominic LeBlanc has a lot of talent. He understands politics really well. He's demonstrated again and again his belief in Canada, and I really hope that he reconsiders his decision.
But why should he reconsider his decision? What do you make of his argument or his explanation that he needs to be finance minister right now? That's more important than running for party leadership.
Well, I think we need to make sure that we have a strong leader of the party and a strong prime minister who can lead the country, win the next election, and continue to defend the interest of Canadians. conversing with him. I mean, look, I've run for leadership. It's a big decision. There's a lot of internal reflection that goes on. Of course, you have to speak to your family. You have to speak to your supporters. And then you make a decision. And so I think the reflection process that he is going through is credible. It is a big job. It is a huge undertaking. And so I respect him for doing that. And I'm grateful for his friendship that he's listening to myself and many people who are members of the caucus.
But isn't it more important that Canada has some stability in terms of who's, the Minister of Finance and in charge of border security at a time when, there's increasing, jokes or otherwise comments being made about Canada being the 51st state of the United States? Isn't that more important than the Liberal Party leadership here?
Well, first of all, we're not just talking about Liberal Party leadership. We're talking about not only the leader, but also the next Prime Minister and somebody then who will lead the party into the next election so that we continue to defend effectively the interest of Canadians. Number one. Number two, we do have a government in place. We do have a Prime Minister in place, and there is a cabinet. And people can do multiple things at the same time. It doesn't preclude them from doing one job or the other. I think they're smart people. But I think it will be extremely beneficial to Canada if somebody of caliber of Dominic LeBlanc considers running for leadership.
Are you suggesting he could do the job he's in now in cabinet and then campaign for party leadership?
Well, those decisions are not mine as to whether one would be allowed to.
But do you think cabinet ministers have to step out of their role if they want to campaign for?
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Not necessarily. What rule says that?
It's convention. I mean, wouldn't there be split responsibilities?
Yeah, but I think that's the decision. I don't want to speculate on the decision the Prime Minister may make. And Prime Minister may decide. And you're right. In the past, that type of decisions has been made.
But how could Canadians be in a position to trust that this government can handle Trump if you have key cabinet ministers like Mr. LeBlanc, potentially others, who are on the front lines of defending Canada against tariffs, also trying to campaign for leadership? Like, how can Canadians trust the government?
Again, there are many capable people in this caucus who can play different roles. If somebody chooses to run for leadership and they are required to step away from their responsibility, I think the strongest spokesperson, the strongest advocate for Canada we have is the Prime Minister himself.
When do you think a new leader needs to be in place?
Moi, je connais Dominique depuis très longtemps. C'est une personne que j'apprécie beaucoup. Évidemment, la décision de se présenter dans la course à la chefferie lui appartient, mais je pense que ce serait un excellent candidat s'il décidait de le faire. Mais je peux comprendre que c'est une décision qui est très difficile.
How does it change the debate within the party now if a big heavyweight like that takes a step away from the leadership race? How does it change the complexion of that race?
I think it's very early to start making determinations about the race when we don't even know who people participating in the race will be. So I think it's a bit premature to come to some conclusions.
Should Canadians read it as maybe it's not a prize worth fighting for?
As I just said, I think it's very premature to start making conclusions about a race that haven't even started yet.
Bon, faites-vous partie des députés qui tentent de convaincre M. Leblanc de reconsidérer sa décision?
Comme je vous l'ai dit, moi, c'est quelqu'un que j'apprécie beaucoup. C'est un collègue avec qui j'ai travaillé. J'y réponds du mieux que je peux. C'est un collègue que j'apprécie beaucoup et je pense que ce serait très bien s'il se présentait. Maintenant, c'est sa décision. Elle lui appartient, elle ne m'appartient pas.
One more question. Do you think it's important for the party to change rules so that the foreign interference question is resolved? In other words, only allow Canadian citizens to vote.
I think we have tasked, we have elected people to represent us at the party, and we've obviously foreign interference is an important issue that the party and our representative are very seized with.
And who is representing you guys at the party then, in terms of the setting of those rules?
We've elected people.
Right, there's two, right? So who are they?
No. We've elected a board for the Liberal Party of Canada.
Aren't there two MPs supposed to be on the committee that sets the rules?
There's 4 MPs beyond the National Caucus chair who are on different committees who have to be nominated in the near future.
Those aren't chosen yet, are they?
Not yet.
Gotcha, thanks. Thank you.
Monsieur Leblanc devrait-il reconsidérer sa décision de renoncer à la course?
C'est aux candidats et aux candidates à poser la question. J'aimerais pouvoir parler en leur nom, mais c'est pas...
Il y a des députés qui tentent de le convaincre.
Il y a toutes sortes de députés qui parlent à toutes sortes de monde. Et moi, je suis aussi un député. J'ai parlé à toutes sortes de gens, effectivement.
Vous n'avez pas d'opinion?
Oui, j'ai des opinions, mais je les garde pour moi pour l'instant, jusqu'à ce que les candidats ou les candidates se fassent une idée plus claire de si elle ou il...
Mais lui, s'est fait une idée qu'il ne va pas se lancer. Donc ça, c'est une idée, là.
Ce sera une question légitime à poser à M. Leblanc et à d'autres candidats potentiels. Il faut sonder le cœur de M. Leblanc et le cœur des autres candidats et des candidates, et on sait que les journalistes sont très bons pour le faire.
Est-ce qu'il y a un consensus au sein du caucus sur les règles adoptées pour cette course?
Alors, la rencontre qu'on a eue aujourd'hui a été très utile parce qu'on a eu des représentants du parti qui étaient présents pour nous expliquer comment, assez rapidement, ils vont présenter le chemin qu'il y aura à parcourir pour les candidats d'ici à ce que le nouveau chef ou la nouvelle chef soit choisi. Donc,
Rapidement, c'est quand?
C'est au parti de le dire, mais d'après ce que j'ai pu comprendre, c'est assez rapide. En fait, j'ai été rassuré et même encouragé par ce que j'ai entendu aujourd'hui. On sait que c'est une job très difficile pour le Parti libéral de faire une telle course aussi rapidement. Ce que j'ai entendu est à l'effet qu'ils se préparent déjà depuis plusieurs jours. Ils ont des rencontres de plusieurs heures, presque à tous les jours. Et donc, ça va dans la bonne direction et on a hâte, et je pense qu'ils ont encore plus hâte que moi, de pouvoir présenter ce processus.
D'ici vendredi?
Ce sera à eux de déterminer, mais je pense que ça va aller assez rapidement.
Quel genre de course vous aimeriez? Rapide? Combien de candidats? Qui votera?
Ah, bien, la course la plus utile possible pour le parti, mais surtout pour le pays, dans une situation où le Canada a besoin d'un leadership solide. Nous avons déjà M. Trudeau, évidemment, qui est encore premier ministre. Il va rencontrer les autres premiers ministres la semaine prochaine. Il va probablement parler à certains de ses homologues quand il va aller à Washington dans les prochaines heures. Et donc, les choses vont... On ne prend évidemment rien à la légère, mais le gouvernement est en fonctionnement parfait et plein. Et M. Trudeau va faire sa job maintenant à temps plein, puisqu'il n'aura pas à se préoccuper de la préparation de la prochaine campagne.
M. Legault a raison de dire qu'il faut garder la tête froide. Il a fait un long plaidoyer là-dessus.
Face à Trump.
Face à Trump.
Oui, mais en fait, il faut faire les deux. Il faut ne pas prendre à la légère les menaces de M. Trump, mais ne pas non plus paniquer, parce que paniquer serait la pire stratégie à faire.
Merci tout le monde.
Excellent discussions today. I have full confidence in Canada, and so thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Des conversations très importantes. Donc, je dois
Nobody can hear you if you don't come to the
merci
camera.
encore pour votre intérêt.
Was there consensus on what the rules should be? Was there consensus? My understanding is the caucus was meant to come up with some sort of idea of sort of a shared idea of what the rules should be. Did that happen?
Well, I don't think there was ever an intention that the caucus would come up with a shared view of what the rules should be. Today was about the National Board, which is responsible for putting in place the rules, to hear from members of caucus about what their thoughts were. I think there was a fair bit of consistency with respect to some of the thoughts that were expressed, but the National Board will be coming up with the rules over the coming days.
What was that consistency?
What were the points that there were?
Well, it was a caucus meeting. Caucus meetings are private, so I'm not going to speak on behalf of what folks said, but certainly they were talking about, in general, themes, you know, the membership and how the membership would be dealt with, the timing associated with it, the threshold in terms of money that would need to be raised as an entry fee. All of those things were on the table. J'ai pas décidé maintenant, mais maintenant je considère il y a beaucoup de collègues qui m'ont discuté et c'est quelque chose que je dois décider dans la prochaine semaine.
When do you have to decide by this? Lots of people are talking about this weekend as sort of the make or break thing for leadership contenders. Do you see this weekend as needing to make the final decision by, or how much time do you think you have?
Well, I would suggest, I mean, look, it's up to individuals, but I would suggest that folks that are interested in seeking the leadership would need to make the decision within a week, and 2 at the outside, but I would say probably within a week. People want to see, obviously, what the rules are, including how much money needs to be raised before they make a decision, but this is going to be a very condensed leadership race.
For you, on the rules, what are the deal breakers for you? What are you looking to see that would make you jump into the race or not jump into the race?
So my considerations have less to do with the rules, although what I would say is I do think the race needs to be an expedited one because whoever becomes the leader is going to need to produce a throne speech, is going to need to establish a new cabinet, and is going to need to come up with a full-blown election platform prior to Parliament coming back on the 24th. That's not something you can do in a day. So I think it needs to be short. In terms of my considerations, for me, it's about, I am not somebody who has been out organizing prior to the Prime Minister making his decision. That's just not me. So is there sufficient support within the caucus, and is there sufficient support with respect to the networks across the country? I'm doing a job that I think is a pretty important one right now, especially vis-a-vis President-elect Trump. Energy and natural resources is at the heart of the conversation we are having with the Americans. So I need to ensure that I can be competitive before I would walk away from the job that I have.
What's your expectation when you're going to get the rules? What's your
Should cabinet ministers stay in cabinet if they decide to go in the race, to run?
Yeah, again, that's going to be a decision of the National Board. I would say there are arguments on both sides, and I think the Board is going to have to weigh this carefully. On the one hand, if cabinet ministers step away, and there are a number of them, many of them are people who sit on the Canada-US Committee, and it's a pretty important time for us to have continuity there. On the other hand, you certainly do not want cabinet ministers to be using ministerial resources to further their own election campaigns, and that would be inappropriate. So I think the National Board is going to have to weigh that very carefully.
Where do you tend on this? What's your opinion?
Well, I guess what I would say is I would look first as to whether there are guardrails you can put around ministerial expenses. If you can reasonably think that there are guardrails you can put on it, I probably would say ministers should be able to stay in place because the continuity is important. But if you are concerned that those guardrails cannot be put in place sufficiently, then I would say ministers.
When are you expecting the rules to be released?
I would expect them within the next few days.
What assurances did you receive? Any assurances that would be the case from the National Board?
As I say, the National Board didn't give us any specific dates, but they are, I think, meeting, I believe they're meeting tomorrow to actually have a conversation, and I would expect, they understand, and they heard from many of us the need for speed, and so I expect you will hear it quite soon.
Do you think the price of carbon should be an item of debate among the candidates?
Well, it depends if others wish to raise it. I would say for me, what's that?
Kevin Lauzon does.
Kevin Lauzon does. I would say for me, the focus of the conversation will primarily be around the economy. I spent 25 years in the business community. I used to be the CEO of a number of different companies. I actually think that it's time for us to really be digging in and focusing on the economy. It's about productivity. It's about affordability. I also think, and I say this all the time, that Canada works best when Canadians work together. I have built relationships of trust with virtually every province and territory in this country, including Danielle Smith and Scott Moe. I think we need to actually reinvest in cooperative federalism and in focusing on economic outcomes.
But Mr. Poilievre is calling it a carbon tax election. So should you enter this race, would you be open to reconsidering the current position on applying a consumer carbon price? Would that be something you'd be prepared to entertain or propose a different policy than what's already on the books?
You know what? I am committed to climate action because I actually believe in science, unlike Mr. Poilievre, who somehow seems to believe in fairy dust. At the end of the day, I got into politics because of climate change. I'm worried about the future that we are leaving our children if we do not take action, but we have to be smart about how we do it. We need to do it in a way that's affordable, and we need to do it in a way that seizes economic opportunity. I am tired of listening to Mr. Poilievre and his ridiculous three-word rhymes. At the end of the day, I would be happy to take him on one-on-one on the carbon price any day of the week. So, thank you very much.
Bonjour. Bonjour. On aimerait peut-être vous entendre sur, de ce qu'on comprend, on vous a présenté un peu les grandes lignes de ce à quoi ça pourrait ressembler. Est-ce que, à la lumière de ce que vous avez entendu, est-ce que ça semble s'enligner vers une course qui serait rapide?
Bien, de toute évidence, nous connaissons les délais, nous connaissons le retour du Parlement, donc la fin de la prorogation. Donc, ça va de soi que ce sera un processus allégé et un processus qui aura pris des raccourcis, là, ça c'est clair.
Did you feel reassured hearing from the party president, or do you have concerns about the rules for the race, the considerations?
I believe in the institution of the Liberal Party. I know there will be very qualified, hard-working people putting together a comprehensive rules package.
What do you want to see? What do you want to see? Short race?
I would say for me, by definition, it will be short.
But in terms of
you're talking to someone who's run.
Saying expedited race, blah blah blah. What does that mean? Like, what kind of date time frame are we looking at?
You're talking to someone who's organized countless leadership processes, all of which had the luxury of many more months, and none of which were electing a prime minister. So,
Monsieur MacKinnon, est-ce que vous sortez plus déterminé que ce matin à devenir candidat, après ce que vous avez entendu?
Sachez que moi, je crois dans notre avenir. Moi, je crois que nous avons de grands défis à affronter, mais je crois aussi que quelqu'un, comme je vous ai dit ce matin, qui est à l'écoute, qui connaît toutes les régions du Canada, qui valorise toutes les régions du Canada, sera capable de se démarquer dans ce processus-là.
How important is it to you that the Liberal Party rules address the concerns around foreign interference and restrict voting only to Canadian citizens?
Well, that's a new reality that I didn't have to deal with, and so the party needs to be putting safeguards in place, and the party has my full confidence. They're well aware of the issues.
Would you be campaigning on keeping the carbon tax?
I'm not getting into what a platform would or wouldn't be at this point.
Avec ce qui est sorti aujourd'hui, avez-vous l'impression que le Parti libéral peut sortir de cette course-là quand même uni après des semaines, des mois de déchirement?
Absolument, et je nous trouve fin prêt pour justement mettre un nouveau pied de l'avant et prendre les premiers pas avec un nouveau chef à l'aube d'une campagne électorale, présenter non seulement de la compétence et une feuille de route, mais aussi une nouvelle vision du pays.
What do you think it says about with the departure of Dominic LeBlanc from the race, who's obviously a heavyweight in your party? What does that say about the race? Is it a prize still worth seeking if someone like him's not interested?
It tells me that Dominic is an extraordinary public servant who takes the job he has today very seriously.
And when will you make a final decision?
À quel moment on aura une décision de votre part puis un chef?
Moi, j'attends surtout pour voir les règles et voir de quoi aura l'air le processus. Évidemment, on va mesurer les appuis aussi dans tous les coins du pays, voir qui sont qui d'autres et de la course, et on partira de là.
Et la date du chef, c'est quel moment le chef? Avez-vous une date?
Ben, ça, c'est le parti qui va...
Should they shut memberships down now? Should they shut qui ferait que vous n'allez pas vous lancer dans la course, qui figurait dans les règles?
Non, je pense qu'il n'y aurait pas de fin de non-recevoir. Je pense qu'on connaît l'étendue des possibilités, là. Mais je vais voir ma propre candidature, les choses que moi je crois pouvoir mettre de l'avant, évidemment transposées sur un ensemble de règlements qui peut-être m'avantagerait ou peut-être que non.
Are you expecting membership sales be shut down? Pour vous, non?
Pardon?
Que Dominique Leblanc décide de ne pas se présenter, c'est avantageux?
Les analyses politiques, là, j'ai abandonné ça depuis longtemps.
Should membership sales be shut down now?
Again, that's a party decision. I will say this: I've never seen a leadership race where the door was closed before it began.
And can you just clarify, when will you be making a decision?
I think I just answered that.
You're waiting for the rules?
I'm going to wait for the rules. I'm going to obviously measure the kind of support I think I can conjure.
But you're thinking decision by Monday kind of thing, or how fast do you have to?
I'm not going to put a date on it.
Okay.
On aura les règles cette semaine?
Je ne sais pas.
Merci.
Sure, I don't think I have anything to tell you.
What assurances did you get from the party today on foreign interference and how that will be managed?
I mean, I'm not going to speak to what assurances were given. What I can tell you is that a lot of us raised the issue and raised the concern about making sure that this race for leader is absolutely secure. Concerns related to memberships from non-citizens or non-PRs was absolutely something that came up. It's certainly something that I've been advocating for us ensuring that we deal with, because we do need to make sure that Canadians feel absolutely confident with the outcome.
Do you feel that those concerns were heard?
Sorry?
Do you feel that those concerns were heard?
Yes.
What makes you feel that way?
I mean, anyone sitting in that room would have heard those concerns and taken them seriously.
And when are you expecting the rules?
I don't know. That's going to be up to the party, but we're hopefully, obviously, very soon.
Should Mr. LeBlanc reconsider his decision not to run?
That's up to Mr. LeBlanc.
But what do you think?
Look, man, it's a difficult decision, and people have to take the decision that they need, that makes sense for their families and for their circumstances in life, and whatever.
Right, but there seems to be a movement in the caucus to have him reconsider from what some of your colleagues are saying. Are you part of this movement?
I think that it is always important for all of us to have the best possible field of candidates, and Mr. LeBlanc would be an excellent person for Liberals to consider.
So do you think you should
Are you
reconsider?
going to endorse anybody?
I think this is one of those things that matters to people and their families, and this is not, we can all speculate and say what we think people should do. It's a deeply personal thing. I mean, if you look at what the Prime Minister and his family has had to go through over the last number of years, it is a lot to ask of somebody, and that is their decision, and I'm not going to ask anybody to reconsider or consider a decision that has such a profound impact on their own personal lives. That's up to them.
Based on what you heard in there, do you think there is still a chance that the party does move ahead with the leadership race that allows for non-citizens and non-permanent residents to be able to vote?
That's a question that you should ask the president of the party. Caucus has made its view. I'm sure you've heard from others. I can tell you what my view is. My view is that the race should be limited to Canadian citizens and permanent residents.
Was there a consensus on caucus on that very point?
I can't speak to what the consensus of caucus is. What I told you folks earlier was that the consensus of BC caucus, which I can speak to, was that was the case. But I can only speak to that because
Sorry, what was the case of BC caucus?
that this issue of permanent residents and citizens be the point of view. But I can only speak to what I'm not authorized to speak about what happened in that room. I can only tell you what my caucus has authorized me to say.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What was your message about what you expect, what you're hoping for from this leadership race? What message did you deliver in there?
Oh, I'm very excited about the opportunity to provide some resurgence to Canadians. I mean, Canadians are looking for a serious leader who can provide support for our national interests.
But specifically on the rules, did you have any?
Oh yeah, the rules. So a lot of discussions were had in regards to that. The board will make their declaration in short order. They need to. Because
when are you expecting those rules?
I'm hoping that'll be done, hopefully, very quickly. I mean, we spent 6 hours in there talking about a number of matters, of which those rules are one. And so they'll be up to the board. I'll let them. I won't speculate.
Do you think the board will take feedback and heard from caucus that non-citizens shouldn't be able to vote in this race?
I'm hopeful that they'll recognize the concerns that Canadians have relative to that process, and we want to ensure that there's integrity and transparency. And listen, there's foreign interference concerns that we already have with the Conservative leadership. And that's one of the reasons why he's not taking his security clearance. We've got to make certain that Canadians feel strongly that the leader that is chosen, who will become the Prime Minister, maybe for a day or a month or a few months, but that's important. That choice is critical to Canadians.
What assurances, if any, did you receive that the board will?
Oh, they were listening. They made very clear that they are recognizing the concerns and they want to address them, and they're going to deliberate as to how to protect the interests of Canadians and the selection of the process.
Do you believe Mr. LeBlanc should reconsider his decision not to run?
Dominic LeBlanc the minister is an outstanding performer. He's a statesman. He's got some gravitas, and he would be a great candidate going forward in this leadership. I mean, it's a personal choice.
Would you have rather seen him run?
Say again?
Would you have rather seen him run?
I would like to see many run. I would like to see a number of candidates come forward and provide a vision for Canada. I mean, I have 4 priorities, and I would like to see them reinforced. My first priority is to grow the economy and create those jobs, to support my second priority, which is social programs, things that matter to the people. So, be it childcare, healthcare, education, those programs that we require. And the third priority, and I think this leader is essential, to bring unity to Canada, to prop up Canadian pride, and to ensure that provincial trade is enhanced, to strengthen Canada, especially in light of what's happening south of the border.
What does it say about that?
And that's important.
Who among the candidates have been talked about do you think speaks to what you just articulated?
Now, I think they're all recognizing the importance of that. I mean, listen, Canada economic growth has been substantive in the last number of years.
But who can do what you said? Is it Freeland? Is it Carney? Is it Kirsty Clark? Is it Melanie Joly?
Well, those are the choices that I have yet to make myself. And so I'm looking at those candidates, and I'm trying to deliberate myself as to who it may be. I mean, I'm not going to speculate as to which ones are going to come forward. They haven't yet announced, so I'm giving them the opportunity to do that.
What does it say about the state of the race that Mr. LeBlanc has decided to bow out?
Well, I mean, he is the finance minister, and he's involved with some very serious negotiations over the border. He recognizes that what's in the best interest of Canada is paramount. This is not about, it's not about the fortunes of any individual candidate or the fortunes of the party. It's about the fortunes of Canadians, and we want to make certain that and I believe he's concerned about them more so than himself.
Just to clarify, are you one of the MPs of the Liberal MPs who are encouraging Mr. LeBlanc to reconsider his decision?
I have not had that discussion with Dominic. I met with him just now. I kind of slapped him on the back saying he should stay in, but that's his choice.
Why do you think he should stay in?
Well, because I want diversity. I want that dialogue. I want us to have that dynamism that makes this party so great. And he brings a degree of competence that the party relies on. I think he's known as Mr. Fix-It, right? But he's much more than that. But there's a lot of fantastic candidates that are going to come forward.
Do you think he'll reconsider?
I can't speak for him.
But you slapped him on the back and you told him you hope him stay in, so what was his response?
He slapped me back.
No, but did you get a sense that he's open to changing his mind?
I can't say. I wouldn't hesitate. I don't want to speculate on what he may say. It's a big decision for anyone. This is a very huge job. It's a very complex amount of work. And so I don't want to, I mean, we've seen the Prime Minister over the last 8-10 years, the impacts it has on family and the sacrifices that people make, and he has to be engaged, and it's tough slog. So I don't want to encourage anybody to do something that has that kind of an impact on their lives.
Did the Prime Minister put him in a bad position though, because he took so long to resign, and now we have Trump coming into the office in less than 2 weeks, and Dominic has been the main guy on the file. Did the Prime Minister put him in a tough position?
I've been through leadership provincially, and after Dalton McGuinty stepped down, and we went through a process. We had more time, obviously, and we selected and elected an individual that became the premier of the province at that point. Then we had time to introduce her to the citizens and put forward a budget and enable us to put forward a platform and run a majority thereafter. We don't have that benefit. This is similar to what happened to Doug Ford, right? And the PCs after Patrick Brown got into those situations, and we had a 45-day election of the new Conservative leader. So we're in that kind of situation now. We want to make certain that the integrity is there and that the caliber in the individual is acceptable and, frankly, a much better alternative to what we're looking at right now.
When should the party have a new leader in place?
Personally, I would like to see that happen early March.
Did you get a sense that was that shared in caucus? Is that?
That's my personal assumption. But I mean, again, if we're going to have integrity and we have to ensure that the selection process is done appropriately, it may require more time. But I would prefer to see it happen sooner than later.
Did you have a sense that the national board might be open to that date?
Yeah, I think that the board is wide open to the discussions, because in the end, what they want is what all of us want, and that's a strong position that Canadians can then make appropriate choices for the benefit of themselves and for our country.
What was I guess, did caucus members receive some kind of a briefing or information from the board and Mr. Mayor while you were in there, or was it more a listening exercise?
I mean, the board expressed what they're undergoing. They also made it clear that this was a listening exercise for them to capture as many ideas and suggestions from the board, the members. But make no mistake, the selection of the leader is going to be made by the people of Canada, by members of the party, who is not just elected officials. This is going to be a broad-based decision, and it should be, because people who are working every day, who are dealing with the trials and tribulations of life in their ridings, who are looking to ensure that their kids have a much better future going forward, they should be part of that decision, and ultimately they will be. And then the electorate, the people of Canada, will have an election thereafter, and then they have an appropriate choice. The ballot question is, do you really want Pierre Poilievre? Do you really want gimmicks and slogans? Do you really want a guy who misdirects? You want somebody who's serious, and that's what we're going to find. Thank you, everybody.